Yeah, so the Taliban are still heady with their military victory, their defeat, as they see it, of the US and the other Western powers in Afghanistan, and their capture of the entire country in a matter of weeks. Some would say that was the easy part. They now have to govern the country. They've been very reluctant to put down any of their ideas on paper as to how they want to do that. They've been solely focused on the military effort, and now they have power. They're going to find it very difficult to actually run this country, mainly, I would say, because of the economic catastrophe that is impending, but also because they've taken power by force and they don't. It doesn't look like they want to share that at all. So looks like it'll be a narrow government.
So not a coalition of sorts as they had first perhaps talked about. What do we know about Sheikh Haibatullah Akhundzada, who's said to be the supreme leader?
He's a cleric, like all of Afghanistan, all of the Taliban in Afghanistan. So he's got a background in Islamic education. He's been very quiet. We haven't seen him for many years. There's currently some photos that purport to be recent ones, but we don't know about that. And actually, there were lots of rumours that he was dead. So it will be interesting to see if and when he does actually appear in video or on screen to make sure that he is actually alive. He delegated military authority to various deputies, and they have been struggling for positions between themselves since the movement captured Kabul. Each of the various different networks within the Taliban moved fighters into the capital. There was a lot of competition for things like rooms in the presidential palace, because, of course, if you want to be in the action, you have to be there. You have to be in Kabul to compete. Your audience should be aware that this competition between networks within the Taliban is competition between a really narrow section of Afghanistan's population. They're all men, of course, but they're also almost all from one ethnic group, from one. They're all mullahs, they're all Islamic scholars, and so far the appointments that they've made have not matched the jobs that they've been given. So you get a mullah who's head of sports, a mullah who's head of the customs union, a mullah who's deputy minister for education, and so on.
And that, to your earlier point, is going to be so telling because they are a fighting force. They have no experience of government. This is an economy that's on the brink of collapse. The banks have been closed. The food is about to run out. How is this going to be arrested in the short term? What experience do they have for that?
Well, they don't. And they have been governing parts of Afghanistan for a long time because they took a lot of the rural areas. They were very good at taxing people, very efficient, but all that money went on the war effort. And as for public services like health or education, they just piggybacked off the government and off NGOs. So they, used the existing structures. The schools stayed open. The government and actually Western donors ultimately paid for the salaries of teachers, but also for doctors and nurses working in the clinics that were run by NGOs. And the Taliban would seek to influence what was going on. So, for example, who was hired as a teacher, the curriculum, tried to get their fighters priority treatment over the civilian population, but they didn't really do anything. They weren't running public services. That's, I think, what they would seek to, again, piggyback on, but it depends on Western money, donors' money, and this is going to be a real ethical dilemma for our governments. Do they want to fund a government that's authoritarian, theocratic, took power by force, is under UN sanctions currently? Or do they think, well, there's 39 million Afghans here, there's a humanitarian disaster impending, there will be hunger, there will be deaths, there will be refugees. Where do our national interests lie, and where does our humanitarian impulses lie?
And I mean, there's no guarantee that if they did release that money, that it would find its way to the people who need it.
Yeah, I think there are methods for doing that. For example, the World Bank runs the programs that were funding schools and primary health in Afghanistan, and that could be there are ways to protect that money that if it was released, it could be, it would go on services and not into Taliban pockets. But on the whole, yes, I agree. It's a really tricky situation. And of course, time is of the essence. And none of our governments had prepared for a Taliban takeover. They were prepared for the old government to carry on and for there to be continuing conflict, or for there to be a negotiated settlement. But no one was prepared for a Taliban takeover, and they're all scrambling to think what they should do.
And Kate, just finally, it's well known that the Taliban are in control of the country's drug trade. Is that going to become, how does a credible government continue to operate a national drug trade?
I think that's rather unfair. The drug trade flourished under the governments of Ashraf Ghani and Hamid Karzai. And the corruption there was as much to do with police chiefs, provincial governors, as it was to do with the Taliban. So this is Afghanistan's one successful export economy, you could say. It's successful because it's illegal, but absolutely everyone had a piece of the action, including, for example, Hamid Karzai's late brother. So it was across the board. And this is a question that could have been asked to any of the governments since 2001.
Interesting point. Good to talk, Kate. Thank you so much.